Hi there. Today in MG's Workplace series, we're talking about communication. Now, do you think you're a good communicator? How effective do you think you are? Because today you're going to be challenged to really dig in and assess how effective you are in communicating. So take a minute, think about your workday. How busy is it? Do you spend most of your day rushing from meeting to meeting, event to event? In between that, you might dash off a few emails, maybe a few text messages, might even occasionally pick up the phone. But you're rushing to get to one thing to the other. And in that rushing, you might be focusing on sharing information, getting out an idea, passing on a task, delegating something. You're focused on what it is that you need to get out there. Far less focused on perhaps what the person in front of you has heard or is able to hear. Does that sound familiar? I've certainly can put myself in that category. I've been guilty of doing that. It's that classic sense of dump and run. You've got information in your head that you think someone needs to know, and your focus is on sharing it, delegating the task, getting that issue moving. But when you're rushing like that, you're rushing the conversation, and your focus is on what matters to you. You're saying what matters to you, what you feel the other person needs to hear, but have really got little time to actually check in. Have they heard it? Have they understood it? Do they now know what to do with it? You might feel better because you go, yay, I've communicated. I've got this thing off my plate. It's moved on to someone else's plate though. They can sit there thinking, not quite sure now what I need to do with it. They can end up feeling bewildered, annoyed, frustrated, and disengaged. If you think about good leaders that you have worked with, you'll know that being able to communicate effectively is one of those skills that really sets them apart. When I think about effective communication, there's like 5 levels. Level 1, which is that base level and is not really effective at all, that's that dumping that I was talking about before. It's a one-way conversation. You're seeking an audience for your voice. You're thinking either subconsciously or quite deliberately, it's all about me. It's all about what I want to get out. You're focusing on your idea or making sure your issue is heard or the information is shared, but you're really not interested in clarifying or checking in whether the other person has really understood what it is that you're talking about. The next level, level 2, this is debating. Level 2, it's a contest of words and ideas between the people who are talking to each other. Each person either seeks to win or to have that last word. When you're involved in this type of conversation, you're less concerned with listening, far more concerned with you getting your point across. Now, the challenge, of course, our brain sometimes isn't very good at listening. And part of that's because our brain uses heuristics, a mental shortcut. And it does that deliberately to save the brain's processing capacity. And it's trying to decide really, really quickly. And this comes into play when we communicate. Because when the other person is talking, you're focusing on formulating your response, what you need to do about it. You can jump ahead. You can assume what they're going to say next. You'll make assumptions about their intent, and you can also be easily distracted. So the challenge with both communicating at level 1 and at level 2 is you're not going to build the relationships that you want, and therefore you won't get the outcomes that you're seeking. Level 1, that kind of sense of dump and run, it might save you time in the short term, and while level 2 can be kind of interesting and maybe fun if you really like debating and that kind of rigorous kind of cut and thrust of those really kind of challenging conversations. But once again, you're not building the relationship that you want. They're not good strategies to pursue if you want to be an effective leader and if you want a healthy organizational culture that gets those really good, sustainable foundations so you build good results. And a minimum, you want level 3. Level 3 is about clarifying. This is where the conversation is far more about the we than it is about the me. The conversation is more curious. It's less judgmental. Both people coming into the conversation are curious, open to learning, seeking to understand better, to explore ideas on answers. And this is so crucial because so much of what's said isn't actually heard. And we can so easily misinterpret what the person in front of us is saying. For a conversation at that level 3 level to work well, both parties need to walk into the conversation with the same level of comprehension as to what it is they're going to be discussing. And you also need to have many things in place. Both parties, you don't want people to be distracted. Both people need to be paying attention. You want to be able to be clear and precise in what it is that you're talking about. And if you're not, for the other person to be comfortable, to challenge, to question. You want all the information to be in the room so that the issue can be pulled apart and looked at through different lenses. All of these elements are rarely present throughout an entire conversation. So asking questions, clarifying, not making assumptions is so crucial. Even better, it's that next level, level 4. And this is about sense making. A conversation of this nature is open-hearted, open-minded. It involves both parties being willing to push into a new way of thinking. It's recognizing the impact that context has on what you're saying and how what you're saying is being interpreted by the other person. It's accepting the role that emotions play in how words are heard. And when you go in with this open heart, open mind, where you're really genuinely interested in making sense of what is going on, you're really seeking to understand the other person. You're looking for insights. You're really trying to understand what's going on for you, what's going on for the other person. Last, certainly not least, is what's at kind of the tip of that little triangle, level 5. And it's what I call adapting. It's really hard as leaders to admit that we don't have all the answers and that our knowledge is imperfect, but we need to be able to. When you're at that level 5, you're really comfortable doing that. You're comfortable saying, I'm not sure, I don't know. Because level 5 conversations are about exploring possibilities, making decisions, really conscious of the context, but also conscious that many decisions are imperfect because we may not have all the information, that you recognize that you don't have the license on being right. At level 5, you're also much more willing to embrace that inclusive style of communication because you're going to be looking to sense check what's going on, to make sure that you're challenging your assumptions. You're going to make sure that you're looking out for the voices of the silent minority that perhaps don't have such a loud voice, because you want to make sure that you're hearing all different perspectives and opinions. If you think about those 5 levels, moving up those 5 levels, it's not easy. And there can be times when you're going up and down the scale, because with all of these things, as with all forms of leadership, it's learning, it's trying, recognizing that perhaps something hasn't worked out and you go back and have another go. But if you want to be more influential, if you want to be a more effective leader, it's crucial to consciously apply that desire to be at that level 5. You always remember the quote from George Bernard Shaw, who said, "The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it's actually taken place." When you hold that type of sentiment dear, what you'll recognize and appreciate is that every conversation, you really need to check what's going on for you, check what's going on for the other person so that you can clarify, make sense, and therefore adapt the approach that you're taking. Take care. I'll see you next week.